The thing about humor is that it establishes inside knowledge of something. Okay, what can't we say, right? Like, what's the funniest thing that we can't do? There's just so much noise and there's so much BS out there. Memes get funnier as they get used more. It's the opposite of what jokes used to be. People think they want to be funny and what they actually want to be is clever.
Welcome to the Growth by Creativity podcast, where we discuss the art of captivating storytelling, telling design, and imaginative communication strategies through interviews and case studies with creative experts. Hope you enjoy and subscribe. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by Richie Redding, founder of Funnier Than You Are, which is a one-of-a-kind comedy consulting company. He helps brands to connect with their audience through humor in a way that has 50x their engagement and 10x their sales. Some of Richie's clients include Amazon Web Services and Goldman Sachs. Welcome to the show.
How are you? It's so good to see you.
I'm good. Richie, I am so excited to have you on the show. I've actually wanted to have you on the show for a very long time, especially leveraging humor in marketing. I just find that that's a wonderful pairing. So just to hit the ground running, how do you think people in B2B marketing can leverage humor?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's similar as B2C, but I feel like B2B has really overlooked it for like way longer than they needed to, because the thing about humor is that it establishes inside knowledge of something, right? Like, it's funny because it's true it also applies with B2B, and B2B has such a specific language to it, and like such an established set of rules that whatever your niche is, whatever your business is, it's very easy to speak directly to those people, to establish that humor, or just the hey, we get it of the field. And honestly, just like with everything else, there's just so much noise and there's so much BS out there, and you're just constantly getting inundated. And I mean, at this point, AI is probably creating 80% of the posts that you see, right? So it's bullshit. There's just so much noise, and being able to break through that with something that rings as human and as true is just a great way to connect with people. And it's like, the misconception is that it's a business selling to a business, but a business can't make a decision, right? You still need a person.
Right.
They haven't figured out that part yet. I'm sure at some point AI will just be talking to AI on behalf of businesses. But like, all of a lot of the stuff that we create is B2C, but it all starts with, like, we connected B2B outreach, right?
Yeah, 100%. In terms of inspiration, like when you work with a client, let's just use like a B2B client just for the sake of our audience, like, where do you get your inspiration? Like, how do you get ideas?
Well, I mean, so I guess I should kind of explain my business a little bit more. Is that, what we do is basically use the power of stand-up comics to create content. It was kind of founded with the idea that a few comics in a room have more creative firepower than any marketing agency or ad agency is ever going to come up with. And it's because we think so far outside of the box, right? Like, we start from a perspective of, okay, what can't we say, right? Like, what's the funniest thing that we can't do? Okay, well, that's out the window. But the thing that I do in particular that I didn't know nobody does is that whenever possible, I create a writer's room of comics that belong to the target demographic. So like, and especially on the B2C side, it's like, well, the first thing we ever created was a rural product that had a very rural audience. So the writer's room was me and 3 redneck comics, and I got a little redneck in me on them. You can see them all here. But so like, their best video was 80,000 and ours had like 2.5 million. And it was just because we talked exactly like those people talk, right? So So then when we move it on to the B2B scene, it's get comics that understand that audience as well as possible. So the questions that I have the most as part of our onboarding process, kind of more than the brand's guidelines, it's important for us to really understand the audience. So we kind of write things inside out from the audience's perspective. And right, like when we were talking about doing something together, the first thing I said is like, what do they see all the time? Okay, so that's out, right? No more of what they see or what they're getting hit with. How do we do something that lets them know that we understand their experience? And so then from there, that's where, we kind of write the funny in backwards from there.
And so tell me more about that. So you really push it. What is the thing that you absolutely can't say, right? And then where do you take it? What does that process look like with your writers group?
Yeah, well, because they'll get bored if I make it nothing but the tell me your safest joke. It's always, I give out like the best bad idea award, because we have fun in the writer's room. But it is interesting that from the best bad idea, a lot of the times it's like, what's the opposite of that? Okay, we found it. For people that are looking to write or create better B2B content, I think a thing to do is, so one of my kind of guiding things is talk like people talk, right? I just referenced it. And because every business, like I said, has its own jargon, its own vocabulary, I think steering into those things and using double entendres, and it's like, the best thing is usually hiding in plain sight. Like the campaign that we're going to do together, there's something that's absolutely hiding in plain sight, and like people just miss it all the time. Those are the things in particular that are really catchy. So I would say a lot of the time what we do is and I'm all over the place on this, but people think they want to be funny, and what they actually want to be is clever, right? Like funny does come with taking bigger chances, but clever always works. And so for thing to think about if you're looking to create clever content is, like I said, kind of leaning into the existing jargon, into kind of meme speak, right? It's an interesting time for humor on the internet because it's like memes get funnier as they get used more. It's the opposite of what jokes used to be. So lean into your own group speak, lean into meme culture. And then there's a book called The Hype Handbook, and this guy named Michael Skine, who I've become friends with, and his thing is rhyme, repetition, and alliteration. And so in terms of branding, things will always come off really clever if you use rhyme, repetition, and alliteration.
Can you give me an example of these three elements?
Yeah. A slogan that we came up with for a distance finding product that shall remain nameless. Know the distance to go the distance. That kind of thing.
Nice.
It's like, is that hilarious? No. Is it super memorable? Yeah. Did a bunch of comedians land on that? And it was something that's been around for 25 years. The marketing team never did? Yes. Also, yes.
Richie, in terms of do's and don'ts, like, yes, you want to push it, yes, you want to really think outside the box, but I'm sure there are parameters, right, that you need to kind of adhere to. What would you say are best practices in incorporating humor in something more serious like B2B marketing?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I do a workshop on this of just humor in the workshop or in the workplace in general. And one of the most important sections of it is how not to bomb. There's 4 rules to it. Rule number 1, don't be a psycho, right? So what does psycho entail? And it's actually very funny that whenever I do these things, people are so afraid of these third rails of corporate, of the workplace, that they won't even say the word. It's like, don't talk about sex, don't talk about race, Don't talk about anybody's body parts, right? Like, don't tell any jokes that involve your hands. That's always it's like you have to grab somebody to tell the joke. Keep that. So it's whatever "don't be a psycho" means to you. Yeah, definitely not trying to train an army of suicide bombers. And if anybody gets fired, do not come back to me saying I didn't warn you. So it's don't be a psycho. Don't ostracize anybody, right? So that also has a lot to do with, like, if you're in the group or out of the group, you can always talk about your own group. Don't overdo it, right? No big swings. And then the final one is don't punch down. Those together come out to don't poop. It's a very easy acronym to remember. Don't poop at work.
Wait, tell me more about those, the third and fourth. Can you expand on those?
Yeah, I mean, that's more, overdo it is like, the locker room talk of the corporate world. And don't punch down, again, is like, I actually had somebody say this, that they had the CEO of their company would be like, our kids are playing Little League together against each other. Hey, good luck this weekend. If we lose, you're fired. Like that kind of, yeah, good joke, dude. Right? Like anything that's taking advantage of your status. So that's at work. But in terms of marketing stuff, I think so my rules are talk like people talk and play offense, right? And the best way to play offense is to tell them what you're not. And it's another way to put that. It's kind of like, it's comedy by contrast, right? So and this especially works if you're an underdog brand, right? Because there's a way to pick a fight with the big dog in a way that, especially in a B2B setting, is very obvious to whoever, if there's a platform that's huge and bloated and expensive and it has 10,000 features that you don't use, it's very easy to call that out, not necessarily by name, right? But just by contrasting your simplicity versus this big complicated hunk of junk. Tell them what you are, right? So tell them what you are part. That's the tension of opposites that you can play.
How do you know when you're funny, and how do you know you're not bombing, essentially? I mean, you have this group of people, obviously you really take into account who you're, doing this, let's say, video or campaign for, but how do you really know you're not bombing?
Hit post. We have a absolute overkill in the amount of ideas and the volume that we start with before we whittle it down. So we present a lot of ideas and kick them around, and they're widely agreed upon before every phase. We have kind of checkpoints, and the comics, I don't give them that much restrictions other than kind of like the brand guidelines, but I know more than they do. So I'm the first point of, okay, we can't say that. And then it usually goes to, like, my girlfriend will be the next stop of, like, before I even take it to the brand, like, yeah. There's some that it's like, I know this is very funny, but is this too much? Right? So she's kind of like the too much filter. And then also then you write it, you shoot it, you edit it. So there are all these points where we have checkpoints. But I realized during while I was saying that I forgot that one of the other rules of B2B is for any kind of video marketing now is first second. Like, the attention span is so insane that the thumbnail counts as much as anything at this point, right? And like with stand-up, rules are, for me personally, I have a 10-second rule that I want people to like me in 10 seconds. And then it changed, like with YouTube, it changed. It was like, all right, like first 5 or 6 seconds. And now that everything's just so quick and on the phone, it's the first second. So the initial image that people are seeing has to be extremely visually gripping and set them up for needing to get to let you get into your story. And to zoom out even wider, that there are new rules kind of in terms of the way that you tell your story. And it's not the same thing as it used to be. Like, okay, here's 25 seconds of this sort of abstract thing that's going to end with a call to action in the last 5 seconds. Now, especially because of there's the challenge of getting them for the first 6 seconds. They kind of need to know what this is about way faster. But there's also an opportunity now for, in my opinion, it was Raindrop that started this with the Dr. Squatch ads that are absolutely the Cadillac, or they're the Rolls Royce of content, because what they did that's so brilliant is that they create 2-minute long spots that can be broken up into 4 30-second spots. And some of them now can even be broken into like 8 15-second spots. It's so smart the way that they're doing it. So, with that, you also get multiple calls to action, right? That there's all these points where it's go get it now. And they especially really excel, them in particular, on TikTok, because they have in-app purchases now, which that's nobody's gonna do that for design services, right? But there is still that same possibility for telling your story, to kind of start in the middle of the story without all this preamble, and like just to kind of eschew the typical storytelling arc.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, because also from a sort of safety perspective, the fact that these videos can be then, you can get sort of extractions or spin-offs, within that same 2-minute video, you can get those shorter videos. In a way, maybe if one part is not funny, you can still leverage that other bit, right? So in a way, you're mitigating the bombing risk, so to speak, right?
The bomb threat. Yeah, for sure. Well, that, and just, you create an economy of scale when you're shooting these things, so that instead of spending 20 grand on a 30-second video, you can get possibly 4 videos out of it, right? So you just dollar cost average it way down.
So Richie, in terms of, when folks work with you, I know you initially talked a little bit about the process, but from start to finish, what does that look like? Like walk us through sort of the process of working with a comedian.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I am still very much the front line of it, and I kind of speak both languages better than most comics. So I will probably remain the point of contact for the foreseeable future. So, a lot of the time, just like when talking with you, when we spoke, is like I wind up with a really good idea, but I still always take it back to a writer's room. So it's first, there's onboarding process that we have is pretty thorough, very thorough, which is brand guidelines, who your audience is, who your competition is, really establishing that what are we not, learning as much about your voice as possible. And then I have a talent coordinator who we meet up, and they're one of the biggest comedy bookers in the country. And we discuss the audience and the project, and then we put together a writer's room. I'll have all the comics write separately for like 3 or 4 hours on the project and come up with all of their best ideas. They then come to me, and we do a writer's room where we just gun ideas. And this is if we do like the big project, right? If somebody really has a content mindset and wants to be a funny brand, it creates what everybody that's ever received it has called a holy shit amount of good ideas. It's a year worth of content. And so from there, they pick which ideas they like the best. We scope it out, and then I get together with the production team, and anything from renting studios to going to the location. For the most part, I cast comedians in the roles, and there's also a great value it's completely undervalued using comedians as influencers. Like, we won this contract for New York City when they were trying to get the word out about ranked choice voting, and the video did well on their platforms with paid reach, but the guy who was in the video was Matt Richards, one of my best friends. He posted it and it got like 500,000 views. So and that cost them marginal. It was like a 5%, 10% increase in their spend. Matt posted it, which he would not have if they did it, if they didn't pay him to do that. And it got crazy reach. It got more that got more reach than all of their ad spend together, which is another reason. That's actually, probably should have said that at the beginning. That is the biggest reason for being funny, is organic reach. You said in the beginning that we've had stuff that is 50x engagement, and that's all because of shares. And we've had a lot of clients that it's like they'll be like, yeah, we got 1,000 shares on this, and I would say like, okay, well, what is that in terms of how many x is that? And it's like, we've never had anything shared. So what's 0 times something, right? So yeah, because if you treat content as a chance to infotain, then there's a much better chance that people might actually share it.
I love that word, infotain.
Yeah, it's the sweet spot.
Absolutely. I'm curious, this idea of leveraging the comedian as an influencer, I think that's brilliant. Would it have to be the person that's in, let's say if you do a sort of a funny video, would it be the person that's in that video, or can it also be someone else? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it makes much more sense if it's the person that's in the video, especially with comics. They want to put stuff out that they're in, even if it doesn't necessarily, if it's not like their particular bag. It's still like, even if it's to kind of make fun of themselves a little, right? Like, hey, look at this, like, look at me, I'm in an industrial, I made it, mom. But they have an audience, and also the brand can share from the comics. They can share it to help amplify it that way.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking is, what if you already have content for whatever reason, but you're like, what, I want to leverage the influence of a comedian to just expand the reach, something that they didn't do. Is that a combination that you've done in the past?
No, not really. There's also an extreme narcissism you have to keep in mind. Yeah.
Richie, in terms of, like, we say content, what specific outputs do you deliver your clients other than video? Are there any other deliverables that you guys work on?
Yeah. It's everything from video, end-to-end video is the biggest project, but we also deliver scripts and stuff all the way down to tweets and even like memes and stuff like that. We have created for clients in the past. Yeah, we have a bank that internal name for them is Bank of the Woke. They require more angle in a joke than any client that I've ever had. So it's a very interesting exercise that it's like they need 30 jokes before they can agree on the one way to tell it. So it's really like the biggest challenge to the writer's room, probably.
Richie, in terms of, well, you're a stand-up comedian. Do you want to end today's show with a one-liner?
No.
Here?
I'm off the clock, sister. I was thinking I would just do one of those like, hey, check me out. Everything is at Richie Redding. Find me on LinkedIn. My company is called Funnier Than You Are. And follow me and tell me how much you adore my comedy. That would be great.
Thank you. You already asked the question for me. And we'll make sure to put that on the caption so folks can check you out, follow you, and have a laugh. Richie, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.